Hello again, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Books and Coffee, where we sit with our nice hot cup of joe or cold cup of joe, however you choose. I do have my cold drink today with me, but yes, welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's Happy March. So we're getting ready to start off our next very fun month of March. We have a visitor. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much again for joining me. So this month of March, we're actually going to be going into a little bit of a different realm in terms of books, still with some romance, but we're actually going to be adding some science fiction into the mix. So let's get started. So this week's book, we're actually going to be reviewing The Host by Stephanie Meyer. Not gonna lie, guys, I read this a long time ago, and I kind of reread it. I skimmed through it and stuff to get ready for my book review for today. But I'm not gonna lie, I did read the Twilight books. I will blatantly admit that. I will also blatantly admit that I was also first in line for the movies. Which, I mean, nothing to be embarrassed about, I guess. So reviewing The Host today, guys. Not gonna lie, after looking at this and pulling it off of my bookshelf, I realized back in the day, this was a really thick book. This is probably the thickest book that I read back in the day. And when I read this book, this was still early on when I first started reading. So I read this book maybe 2-3 months after reading The Vampire Kisses. So big jump, y'all. But yeah, so before we get into my book review of The Host, let's get to know a little bit of Stephanie Meyer, aside from the big time obvious. So obviously we have to get the number one known fact out, which is she's very well known for the Twilight series, which to this day has sold over 100 million copies globally. Oh man, that's a lot. The second really cool fact about her is that USA Today actually named her Author of the Year for doing something that no author has done before, which is both in 2008 and 2009, she swept the 4 top slots, which is really, that's a big deal. No other author, even to this date, has done that or come close to it. So yeah, kudos to you, Stephanie. So yes, The Host was published back in May 6, 2008. And I believe, 2008. That was my 8th grade year of So that goes to show you. Oh man, damn, thinking about that now, I'm hella old. But yes, a little plot summary for those of you who haven't read the book. I'm actually just going to be reading the excerpt that's on the front flap of this. And actually, this copy is actually the one that came out in 2008, I believe. So it is the first, I think it is actually the first copy. It's a hardback cover. I definitely remember, I bought this one at my local Barnes & Noble when I was first delving into all of the books. So yeah, but we're going to be reading the synopsis that's in the little flap here for you to give you just a little idea of what the book is about. Melanie Strider refuses to fade away. Our world has been invaded by an unseen enemy. Humans become hosts for these invaders. Their minds taken over while their bodies remain intact and continue their lives apparently unchained. Most of humanity has succumbed. When Melanie, one of the few remaining wild humans, is captured, she is certain it is her end. Wanderer, the invading soul, who has been given Melanie's body, was warned about the challenges of living inside of a human. The overwhelming emotions, the glut of senses, the too vivid memories. But there was one difficulty Wanderer didn't expect. The former tenant of her body, refusing to relinquish possession of her mind. Wanderer probes Melanie's thoughts, hoping to discover the whereabouts of the remaining human resistance. Instead, Melanie fills Wanderer's mind with visions of a man Melanie loves, Jared, a human who still lives in hiding, unable to separate herself from her body's desires Wanderer begins to yearn for a man she has been tasked to expose. When outside forces make Wanderer and Melanie unwilling allies, they set off on a dangerous and uncertain search for the man they both love. So yeah, so obviously the question of why this book? Why did I choose this book to start us off on our science fiction romance? And honestly, because it was like, again, like the first kind of like science-y, I guess, fiction book that I had. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it is a favorite of mine. I honestly, like, again, even just skimming through it and like rereading certain sections just to, you know, refresh, I did have a desire to reread it. And I mean, I have reread it, not multiple times, but a fair amount of times. You know, the paper cover is a bit ripped here and there. I mean, I've kept it, you know, to the best of its condition, but it's, you know, it's pretty old. The pages are yellowed. It's actually been very fascinating to see, because I do remember when these pages were white. But yeah, it just holds a really special spot in me. Definitely takes me back to, you know, the back in the days, memories of like when I was first reading it. So, but yeah, it's pretty fun. Of course, the things that really piqued my interest while I was reading this book was, I mean, the story concept and the world build that Stephanie does in this book, while also like the soul versus human soul, like the alien soul versus the human soul aspect. I really, really enjoyed that duality of the mind, of two minds inhabiting one space. It was very interesting and very fun to get to know two different characters and try to distinguish like their personalities while they were inhabiting basically the same body. But also like how that affected the relationships that these two characters, again, in one body, how the relationships that they make, you know, how that affected it. Like, yeah. So with the story concept, when I was first reading this and even like skimming through it, it definitely gave me like a dystopian era vibe, but like shiny. So the way I think about it is that it kind of, you know, now that I, you know, really, really think about it, it kind of made me think that it's not as flashy as the city in the Hunger Games was, but it still had that like kind of like modern day clean cut style of society in terms of with the cities and now with the souls inhabiting the planet Earth. And that was so fascinating to me in terms of like how of like the souls in general. Like these are like tiny little aliens that that ended up on Earth. And of course that like brought up a whole bunch of questions for me, you know, while reading this, is to like, how did they get here and why are they here? I mean, like I said, it brought up just so many questions, because then like it made me think like, was the reason that they came to this planet because, you know, near extinction, did they run out of room on their planet and so they like went to spread out to other planets? Because it's not just Earth that they've inhabited. I mean, from the basic description, you know, of what we're given is that, you know, they've kind of gone everywhere, and they've gone to different planets. And like there's different kinds of planets, obviously. But yeah, it was like this really cool aspect of like what an alien, I guess, in this world is like, and how they inhabit the bodies, which is something that I thought was really, really super cool. Nothing too spoilery as of yet, but like the way that I guess like the soul inhabits is that they cut open, at least on the humans, they cut open like the back base of the neck, and to where like the brain stem is, and then what happens is that this little soul, which is supposed to be like this really like glowy, pretty, like almost jellyfish like that isn't it really in the shape of a jellyfish, but almost kind of like a really pretty, like, I don't want to say worm, but kind of like a worm with like all these little like light tentacles, and it's like this super bright, beautiful thing, and it like just slowly like goes into the back of the brain, and then with its little tentacles it like attaches itself to like our brain stem and everything, and then, you know, they re-inhabit the body, they make the body their own. And what's really cool is that or at least one of the ways that you could tell a human versus a soul in terms of like, you know, how can you tell a human versus a human body that's has a soul in it, is like, I guess they've got the silver around their irises. So, and that's the main difference. So I thought that was really cool too, in terms of like how you can tell the difference between that. Another really interesting fact about the souls is that they are, like, in general, very peaceful, in almost a creepy kind of sense. Because, like, again, these are beings that have taken over different planets and different creatures and species. And to them, it's not really anything. Like, they're just like, oh, I do it for survival. Just like we would do anything for our survival, in terms of, like, inhabiting, you know, invading lands, taking things that aren't ours. But yeah, so in a sense, but again, but they, what's different about obviously humans versus soul is that souls are innately, like, super kind and very trusting, and it's because they see no reason to be deceiving. They're just like, I'm just gonna tell you what I want, and, you know, we're gonna have a discussion, and then we're just gonna find, or if we, like, disagree, then we're gonna find somewhere in the middle where we can come together and then get what needs to be done. Whereas humans, obviously, we have just so many raging emotions that is different. Which kind of takes me into my second point, which is the human soul versus the alien soul part. So in the book, obviously based off of our description, Wanderer, which is our main soul character, she inhabits, like I said, Melanie's body. And slowly she comes to, as she's trying to, like, you know, weed through the memories to try and find the rest of the human resistance, she is being blocked. And because, you know, lo and behold, Melanie is still there. And that's where this idea of, like, two people inhabiting a body was just so interesting and fascinating to me, because it kind of made me think of, like, a dual personality, like when you have that dual, like, split personality, like how that affects somebody. And what's really cool about this story too is that the whole time you're talking through Wanda's point of view. So we're experiencing everything through Wanda, which is what, you know, Wanderer gets shortened to later. But so it's very interesting to experience, like, when she first awakens in a body, how she kind of comes to grip with human emotions, because she's never experienced that, like, our emotions, our feelings, our, you know, hate, our love, our sadness, our happiness, like, all of that is so brand new to her, and it is kind of a culture shock to her. Like, it's something she has to, like, rein in, because souls are innately so innocent that when they feel all of these, you know, negative feelings, they don't really know how to handle it properly. Which is why even with Melanie's body, and it's said in the beginning of the book, Melanie's body, they waited for a strong soul to put in her body, because they knew that not just any soul could be in this body. Like, it had to be a soul that was going to be strong enough to take on not only all of the negative, not only all of her, you know, regular emotions, but all of the negative emotions as well. And this actually kind of brings me into like the first memory. And what I mean by that is that when a soul first gets put into a human body, they experience basically the last memory that the human had is the soul's first memory. So that's what they call it. And usually it, you know, there's a what they call a healer soul there to kind of monitor and help the new soul, like, go through these first memories and, you know, ease them into their new life. So the first memory that a wanderer has is of the Seekers, which is kind of like the soul bounty hunters, I guess you could say, chasing Melanie and capturing her, and that whole process. And so obviously there's a bunch of emotions, a bunch of memories that Wanda goes through. And there are certain, like, parts in that first memory where you see Jared, where you don't see Jared or Melanie's little brother Jamie just yet. That comes down, like, later towards like, not the middle of the book, but, like, when Melanie starts making herself more known. Because what happens is, like, when Wanda first wakes up, Melanie is already there. But we as the reader and Wanda don't know that. Because as she's going through these memories, what she's realizing is that there are things that are missing. And at first they think that it's very common, that's a very common thing that, some memories will come to you slowly. And that's why they have, new souls come back and kind of see like the psychiatrist, the healer, in a sense, for like every other day or every day, just to talk it through the first memory, to try to like settle them into their new body and stuff, especially when they have so many chunky missing memories, which is what Wanda goes through. And it's because Melanie is hiding, Jamie. She's hiding Jared from Jamie and Jared from Wanda because she's trying to protect them. And it is like this really cool, like as the story gets going and, Wanda discovers that Melanie's still there, it's really cool, this interesting battle of wills of like, Melanie being stronger, and then at some point, Melanie kind of losing her control, and then Wanda kind of like goes in and like tries to like, take as much information as she can. But as she's taking this information, she's like becoming overwhelmed with all of the emotions, the feeling of grief, the feeling of loss, the feeling of anger, happiness, all of that. Wanda kind of gets thrown in for a roller coaster, and it's whenever that happens to her, that's when Melanie kind of takes over. So it's very, very interesting. And it's something that I really enjoyed. I thought that was very, very interesting, and it's it's very much one of my favorite parts about rereading and even re-skimming through the book, was like being able to like re-experience that. Another cool thing too about the Battle of Wills, and this kind of just goes to show you in terms of like the way like when Melanie's trying to protect her memories of Jared and Jamie from Wanda, is that sometimes like Melanie will use her like overwhelming emotional memories to kind of, I guess you could say, not really manipulate, but yeah, no, I would definitely, actually, I retract that. I would definitely say manipulate. That she would use it to manipulate Wanda, so that way to kind of get her on her side, and try to trip her up, because there is, at the end of the day, Wanda is looking for the human resistance, and Melanie will sometimes use those emotions, those memories of Jared or Jamie, to kind of distract Wanda, so that way she can like shut out the other emotions. And then of course, once Wanda kind of becomes overwhelmed with said emotions, she'll back off, and then Melanie usually shuts the door on those memories and keeps them locked tight. But yeah, again, it's a very, very cool, interesting dynamic between these two. But obviously, eventually, Wanda and Melanie, as the beginning of the story goes, and as they kind of bond over missing Jared and Jamie, and so they create a bond, and at some point, with kind of a little bit of manipulation on Melanie's side, is like, we have to get out of this, soul society. But yeah, to get out of this this new soul alien society and get back to Jared. And so they kind of create a bond based off of that. And it's, again, very interesting, because it's a relationship that starts off with like, I want to see Jared. You want to see Jared because I am showing you my memories, but it's mainly me. So it's basically out of selfishness. But yeah, it's a friendship that is created through selfishness, and then eventually turns into a very sisterly, loving relationship. And it's a very fun and sweet read. This obviously all just brings me to my favorite point as to why I really loved this story, which is the relationships. Because, oh boy, are they amazing. And the reason that I absolutely loved like the relationship building, and how like the split personality affects how each of these relationships work, is because each relationship is so unique to each individual. So like Wanda will develop a relationship with somebody that Melanie either has sort of a different relationship with, that is either good or bad. And it's just so unique because, again, on the inside, it's Wanda creating a relationship with this character, while this character is getting to know Wanda, but in Melanie's body. So it's it's even confusing for the other person too, because it's kind of like, you know, I recognize this body, but the person I'm talking to isn't the person that this body belongs to. So it's very interesting. It is extremely, extremely interesting, and it's super fascinating, especially because, again, Wanda and Melanie are completely two different personalities. In some ways they're similar because Wanda does take on a bit of Melanie's personality, which is another thing that's really cool about the souls, is that whoever body they inhabit, they kind of take on some of the personality of that human. However, they make it their own, which is kind of what Wanda does. And it's super interesting because every now and then the Melanie will catch on to what Wanda's doing. And sometimes she'll call her out and be like, you know, you don't have to do what I do. You know, you could be your own person and stuff. And like, Wanda's like, well, I'm just learning, or I want to be a little bit more human. And Melanie's like, you can be more human. Yeah. And it's like, it's okay to take some of my traits. Like, that's fine. But just remember to be your own person, which is, again, super fascinating. And I absolutely love it. And I can, you know, kind of understand it, especially come from a sistery point of view, because I have a younger sister. And I remember when she was growing up, I was very afraid that, because she hung around me so often, I was very much afraid she was going to take on a lot of my personality. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm very selfish with my personality. I love how quirky and weird I am. Not always, but you know. But I was very afraid that she wasn't going to be her own person. And so I remember having those big mean sister discussions of you know, go away, go do your own thing. And, you know, reflecting on it now, definitely should have been a lot nicer. But, you know, hey, we're sisters and we still love each other, even though we get on each other's butts and nerves all the time. But that's what a sister is. But yes. And then another cool thing, like I said, the relationships are super, super interesting, especially for me. It was because it's told through Wanda's point of view, it's even way more fascinating, because again, she is constantly learning. She's constantly evolving throughout the book and learning how certain relationships with some people work. Like, how do I go about, you know, making someone like me who has super animosity towards me and I have no idea why. Again, the souls are innately very kind people. They don't even have to know you at all, and they're like, oh, we're best friends forever. And then of course, when Wanda and Melanie finally go back to the human colony that's been hidden away, the human resistance, and all of this animosity towards, you know, Wanda, and she's just kind of like, I understand why, but me specifically have done nothing wrong. And and it's just her understanding where certain people are coming from, understanding where the human race is coming from, essentially. Because again, I mean, the souls were the ones that took over all of the human race, and almost all of the humans are nearly wiped out. This is a very small group that she's just that Melanie and Jared and Jamie are a part of, and the fact that they even exist is kind of a miracle in of itself. Another point within this point that, in terms of the relationships, is that, like I said, the book is told through Wanda's point of view. So watching Wanda create these relationships is very interesting, but it's interesting in the way because, like I said, Wanda is still evolving and learning, but she's also experiencing her own emotions. And sometimes she's very confused about it because she's not 100% sure if these are her emotions or if they're Melanie's emotions, because it's Melanie's body and Melanie is still there. So she's never 100% sure if the feelings she's feeling are genuinely hers, or if they're just replicas, or if she's just mimicking Melanie's body's emotions. And that really comes into play, especially with our little love square that happens between Jared, a character Ian, who I love forever, and of course Melanie and Wanda. Well guys, it's that point of the video. Spoilers! So if you want to skip to the end of the video, go for it. The time's going to be right here for you. Go ahead, skip it. If you read the book and then want to come back and join me for this next part of the video, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, we're just going to get started. All right. So one of the things that I thought was really well written, that I feel like Stephanie did a really good job with kind of introducing this concept of like the human life versus the soul life. And what I mean by that is towards the middle-ish, endish of the book, after Wanda has been, in this human colony for a bit, and she's made friendships, she's making new ones. Obviously, she's more emotionally involved with Jared. She's definitely emotionally involved with Ian at this point, and of course Jamie as well. And so she's learning to kind of like love humans and accept humans as like possibly a home planet for her, which is very, very new and shocking for her, because her name is Wanderer. And the way she got that name is because she has been on, I think 4 or 5 planets. And for a soul, that's very uncommon. It only takes a soul basically like 2 to 3 transfers of a planet in order for them to decide what planet they like best and then just stay there for the rest of their remaining life. But for Wanda, this is like the first planet that she's like, coming to really enjoy. She's coming into her own. Obviously, she's very much struggling with this dual action of like, being inside of Melanie and obviously getting to know Melanie and loving Melanie and feeling horrible about the situation in terms of like, I'm in Melanie's body, but Melanie's still here. Melanie's essentially trapped. Here's Jared who, loves Melanie, and Melanie loves Jared, but I also love Jared, I think. And then you have Ian, who Melanie does not love, but Wanda is starting to have feelings for him, and he is just, and of course Ian is reciprocating all of this feelings for Wanda, and so it's just like this being pulled this way and that. It's oh man, I can't tell you how interesting and how fun and how riveting it was to read that and be emotionally invested in it. And I think that that's the other thing too about this book, is that you just become so emotionally invested with Wanda and Melanie. And so every time they get pulled one way or the other, it's like you feel for them, and you just you want Melanie to be able to just kiss and love on Jared and be able to hold her baby brother. But at the same time, you feel so bad for Wanda, because Wanda is conflicted with these feelings for Jared, because it's does she love Jared? But then you have Ian, and he's such a sweetheart, and he seems to genuinely love Wanda and not even care about the body. He just loves Wanda, and oh my gosh, it's just again, I just cannot tell you how amazing that feeling is. And that's why you definitely just read it. In order for you to understand what I'm trying to say, you just have to read it. It's amazing. Definitely recommending it, obviously. But anyway, back to the point that I was trying to make was the human soul, or the human life versus the soul life. So after making all of these emotional relationships, these connections that she's had with these people, and she's kind of starting to make a home for herself, she discovers that one of the characters, Doc, has actually been experimenting on any soul bodies that they find, or they actually kidnap. And he tries to experiment on figuring out how to take the souls out of the bodies. But what happens is that a soul kind of has not a self-destructive button, but they have a way that when they are pulled from the body, that if done incorrectly, they die. and so does the human body, essentially. And Wanda comes to find this out because she walks in while Doc is doing these experiments and actually happens to see like 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 dead soul bodies, like the little worm, you know, pretty glowy things, like they're dead. And she like freaks out, and then she like, you know, calls everybody a monster, and she just goes to this emotional turmoil of like seeing her species be destroyed and mutilated, and it kind of just like throws you in for a whirlwind, because again, you feel for Wanda, you like understand like what she's going through, especially because, you know, throughout the whole time of like building these relationships, you know, she's been called a parasite, that, you know, just really mean, vulgar things about her, again, being a parasite, one of them. And so she kind of like throws it back at all of their faces in terms of, you know, all the mean stuff is like, they're monsters, they're brutal, like this is why we took over, because you're violent, and, you know, like there's no reason for you to be violent, there's no reason for you to kill, there's no reason for war to happen, like you humans are, you know, blah 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 blah. And it is just one of those where like you watch her go through this emotional turmoil and you just feel for her, but at the same time, like, you're really not mad at the humans. At least I wasn't. Like, it was one of those where I was like, ooh, that wasn't a good thing you did, but I understand why you did it. And it's, you know, and the way I thought about it is that it's like, you know, with the souls taking over, obviously, there's no war. There's no, like world hunger has been solved completely. And essentially there is like peace on Earth, essentially. Not like entirely, like obviously with the, you know, hunting down of humans. But, you know, essentially the world is okay. But, you know, humans have a right to live. I mean, our planet was taken over by these creatures who just decided that they were going to take over. They gave no valid reason other than, we need to inhabit your planet and we're going to make it better. And it's like, what? Like, we didn't get a say in it. We didn't get a choice. It just happened. So, like, again, it's that understanding of, like, you know, the human life versus the soul life, like, all of that, you know, emotional turmoil. Again, the being pulled one way versus the other. Because, again, Melanie has formed bonds with these people. So she, you know, after Jeb, who's kind of like the leader of the human colony, kind of sits down and basically tells her, you know, gives her this little speech of like, you know, we have a right to live too, you know, and you kind of took away our choice, and so we're just trying to fight back. We're just trying to live. We're just trying to survive too, just like you are. You know, what's the difference between you surviving and me surviving? And it is one of those where, you know, she kind of has to just sit there and ponder and think about it, and she does come to the conclusion, you know, that sadly that, you know, that she starts to, you know, view herself as a parasite, because essentially that's what they are. You know, they've invaded and ruined many, many human lives, torn apart families, and it is something that she kind of has to, like, acknowledge and accept. Yes, this is what we did, and yes, it is wrong, and I'm going to help fix it. Which is where kind of like my next point comes from, which is like the big sacrifice that she makes for Melanie and for just the human in general, which is teaching Doc how to properly take out a soul. Of course, this is like super big taboo amongst the souls. Like, all souls know how to take out other souls from other bodies wherever they go. It's kind of like an innate, almost instinctual thing that they know how to do. And the reason that they don't say how to do it, obviously, is because they don't want, you know, the species they take over to take them out. But with Wanda kind of coming to the understanding of, you know, what her species has done to the humans, she wants to teach Doc how to properly take out the souls and like how to safely transfer them off planet, you know, safely, so that way both the human body and the soul can both exist. It's just the soul will obviously be taken off the planet, and the human body, should someone be in there, they can attempt to try to revive and bring back. Of course, this causes tension immensely with all the relationships that Wanda makes, which again, this is where it kind of leads into my other spoiler point, which is digging in deeper to the relationships and looking at them and understanding why. For me, I absolutely loved how Stephanie wrote and how these relationships developed as the book went along. All right, so the first relationship is kind of the obvious one, which is Melanie and Wanda. So I kind of already said it at the beginning, but at first, Melanie hates Wanda. Obviously, for obvious reasons. I mean, she's in her body and she took it over. So there's animosity already at the beginning, and there's just always this constant struggle, especially for Wanda, as she is trying to filter and get used to the body and the memories, because Melanie has such a tight door on everything. So every time Wanda thinks that she's about to discover something new, Melanie just slams the door and is like, nope, not today. What makes it interesting is that you get to see kind of like Melanie, she's almost like a hidden shadow at first at the beginning of the book, because every time Wanda starts to see like soft images, especially if Melanie isn't like doesn't have her guard up, she's able to take glimpses of Jared and Jamie at first through the memories. And so she is like slowly kind of like takes nitbits and stuff, and Melanie, once Melanie becomes aware of that Wanda's looking at her memories, Melanie kind of like puts her guard up and is like, no, they're mine. And you get to see that protective side of Melanie, that's really strong-willed side of Melanie that kind of draws Wanda even towards Melanie. Because at some point at the beginning, as Wanda is experiencing all of this stuff, she tries talking to her. Because at first, she doesn't talk to her. Like, she kind of ignores her or tries to. But then she realizes that she can't. So then she's like, well, if you're gonna be here, I might as well talk to you. So then she actually does start talking. And the way she does it, I think she even sits in front of a mirror and talks, actually stares at her and is like, I know you're in there. Talk to me. Like, you and I are in this body, or, why are you still here? And of course, Melanie's kind of like, why am I still here? This is my body, girl. You shouldn't even be here in the first place. And so it is just immensely interesting to watch, these two kind of first it's kind of like a pure, not pure hatred. I mean, again, some animosity on Melanie's side, but Wanda just kind of trying to sit there and be like, look, I am here, you are here. We just have to figure out how to coexist because I need to do my job. And then Melanie's like, but do you? I'm down. I mean, not really, but I'm down to share this body because I technically have no choice. But do you really have to peek into my memories and find the love of my life and my brother and turn them over to your crazy healer seeker people? I don't think so. And I mean, this is why Melanie keeps the walls up, because she doesn't want Wanda to find, Jared or Jamie or any of the rest of the people back in the colony, because she, at first doesn't trust Wanda, because Wanda is working with the healer to try and find, her group. And she's like, no, I'm not gonna, expose them. So that's why she keeps up these mental walls. But obviously, eventually, Melanie, kind of comes up with this idea, and you can see it happening because I feel like Wanda even sees it coming, but because she's already kind of emotionally invested in figuring out and finding Jared and Jamie in herself, for her own curiosity, I feel like. So that's why when Melanie starts, kind of hinting at look, we could work together to go find them, but we have to leave your little society here to go and find them. We have to leave this behind, not tell anybody where we're going, so we can go find them. And at first Wanda's like, I don't know, that sounds dangerous. We really should tell somebody where we're going. And Melanie's like, no, we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. We'll be fine. I know exactly what we need to get, how much water we need to get, what food we need to get, and where we need to go. You just trust me. Just trust me and I will. And what happens is that she kind of like bargains with Wanda. She's like, I know where to go. And Wanda's like, why won't you just tell me everything? But again, Melanie's like, I don't trust you. Because if I tell you everything, you're going to tell them. And I'm not going to tell you everything right now so you can go off. I'm only going to give you a little bit here and there every day so that way we can get back to Jared and Jamie. Because that's what you want, right, Wanda? Like, we want to see Jared and Jamie, right? And Wanda's like, yeah, I know I do. So it is like this like manipulation kind of thing, like emotional manipulation that Melanie kind of does. But again, as the story goes on, Melanie does start to, have genuine sisterly feelings for Wanda, it looks out for her, and stuff, especially when it comes to, when Ian kind of pops up, because Ian kind of takes an interest in Wanda after certain events in the book. I don't want to spoil too much in the spoiler section, because definitely the way that relationship kind of builds is super genuine and just super sweet. It is my favorite relationship, which we'll get to in a sec. But when Ian comes into the point of view, Melanie kind of gives her like, watch out for this guy. Like I know human guys, Wanda. Like, trust me on that. Like, there's only one thing on their mind, man, because I know. And then of course Wanda's like, but Jared's a human man. Isn't that what's on his mind? And Melanie's like, well, yeah, but that's not just everything. Like he loves me. And Wanda's like, well, yes, I understand that, but couldn't he also just kind of like love me? And Melanie's like, I don't know, I don't trust him. It's a very sisterly kind of like duality. And again, it makes me chuckle again, because I do remember, because I skimmed this part and I kind of chuckled and thought to myself, this was kind of like the discussion I had with my sister about her boyfriend. So it's just a very sweet, very, very sweet relationship that they build off of. And it actually is very, very wonderful to watch Melanie kind of become protective of Wanda, in a sense. Not treating her like a little sister, but a sister nonetheless. Like, somewhat of a naive state, and just kind of teaching her the ropes of, human emotions, of like human interaction and stuff, and just getting to know, the telltale signs of, what makes a good person a person, and like trying to be able to figure that out on your own, but also being there to back you up. All right, now time to talk about like the romance part, or the part that, though super, super mega confusing at first, like I remember reading this and I was just like, what? It's like, it's just so like, it can be very confusing. So I'm going to try to explain it in a way that isn't confusing, hopefully. But here we go. So the relationship square, triangle, however we want to put it, between Melanie, Jared, and Ian is fascinating. And the reason I say that it's fascinating is because of the dynamic of it all. Because again, Wanda and Melanie are sharing one body, two personalities, one body, and Stephanie does a really good way of describing the love that they feel for both men, for both Jared and Ian, and because it is one of those where, for example, with Jared, Melanie, the soul, and the body love Jared. And Jared loves Melanie, the soul, and the body. And the body reacts much differently towards Jared. And what's really cool, and the way that Stephanie describes it, and again with both relationships, is that they react differently. And so with Jared, it's described that, when Jared and Melanie kiss, or when Wanda and Jared kiss, the body feels like a wildfire. It's intense, it's heated, and you can just feel this burning passion and this burning desire of love, and everything just pour out, and the body yearns for Jared in a way that just confuses Wanda. And it's kind of like Wanda's like, no, this is right. Like this relationship this is what this body, this soul, and maybe even what I want. But then you introduce Ian, when that relationship becomes new for Wanda, and Wanda starts having genuine, like Wanda, like the soul Wanda starts having genuine feelings for Ian. And what's very interesting is that Ian has genuine feelings for Wanda. But what happens is that when, you know, Wanda, you know, has like, you know, whenever Ian like holds her hand, or whenever he holds her, and at one point whenever he kisses her, the way that Stephanie describes it, you know, that how that comes out is that it's like molten lava, like molten rock underneath the surface. And the way she also describes it is like there's a fog that's there, and the reason that fog is there is because it's the body, which is super fascinating, because again, the body has such a different reaction to Jared, where the way that I was able to even kind of understand it, even like with the little quick skim read through, was that the body scientifically and chemically is reacting to the kiss, to the physical reaction, you know, how a body, you know, normally activates when that kind of stuff happens. But that's it. So, but with Jared, it's almost kind of like an earth-shattering experience. It's almost like this body was meant for him. You know, that was meant for Jared. It wasn't meant for Ian. And that's kind of like where this like torn apart thing comes in. Because Wanda, with that fog, she can feel the intensity. And that's something that's also really cool too about, in terms of just kind of like flipping it from the guy's point of view, is that for Ian, he loves Wanda. He loves Wanda the soul. He doesn't care about the body. He doesn't care what she looks like. He cares about her, like innately her. And that to me was just so beautiful to read and to like get to know like the way he thinks about her. And it's just so pure and so cute. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was like my favorite relationship that Wanda, you know, develops throughout this whole book. Because again, she is always conflicted with Jared, because she doesn't know, are these my genuine feelings, or is this Melanie, you know, feeling the love and desire she has for him? Like, I think it's my genuine feelings. Like, I do genuinely love him, but it's different with Ian. Like Ian, like I'm moved, not just like my soul and body, but like every part of me, like the little me is moved by him. And it's so cute. Again, I can't describe to you how amazing that relationship as it develops becomes. I mean, the section of the book towards the end when Melanie makes the decision to show Doc how to take out the soul, there's just an emotional scene between her and Ian. I don't want to spoil it within this, because it is something I definitely want you all to experience when you read it. And it's just, it's so heart-wrenching. And I mean, every time, I just skimmed it. Like literally, I remember exactly the chapter. And so like I flipped to that chapter and I just read that chapter. Again, don't have to read the whole beginning, but I just read that part and I was in tears. I still cry over that scene. And it is just, so beautiful, and it's so heart-wrenching. And again, that dual feeling, which again, kudos to Stephanie for just being able to just write and be able to like pull your emotions this way and that, because that is how it feels. And that's the whole point of the story for Wanda anyway, throughout the whole story, is that she is constantly being pulled this way and that. And that's why she makes the decision that she does to tell Doc how to take out a soul, because, you know, essentially she's like, you know what, no, I can't continue to be pulled apart this way and that. You know, Melanie is still here. She deserves to have her life. So I'm going to give back her body. But that means I have to go away. And it is such a heart-wrenching decision for her, because again, she's created all of these relationships, and she's, you know, she loves the humans. Like, she ends up falling in love with Ian. She falls in love with Jared. Like, she loves everyone, and she doesn't want to leave, but she understands how unfair it is, and she herself is just tired of being pulled this way and that. And yeah, it's such like a heart-wrenching part, and I love it so much. So the last relationship that I want to talk about in terms of this section is Wanda's relationship with, you know, Jamie, and with the rest of the human colony, that in general, all of the friends that she makes. which is kind of like where, for me, the theme comes from. And of course, the theme for a lot of different people, or for people, is very different. For me, the way that I took it was, in listening, there comes understanding, and with understanding comes respect and love. And that's like what, Wanda does, with the relationship she builds with Jamie, with Jeb, with Doc, and with all of the other people in the human colony. Because again, there are some people who just straight up hate Wanda. Like, the moment she shows up, they hate her. They want nothing to do with her. They at first are like, nope, I'm not even going to give you a chance. Even after, like, she proves her trustworthiness and her loyalty over and over again, these people are just straight up like, nope, nope, nope. And I mean, even at some point, like, Ian and, like, everybody else are like, bro, what else does she have to do to prove? And you know what? She doesn't have to prove anything else to you. You're just being an asshole. And yeah, and with vice versa with Wanda. Like, there are just some people that Wanda, again, just kind of like preemptively prejudges. But then, of course, once she listens, and once they listen to her, there comes an understanding between them, as to why certain things happen, why certain relationships, work, why certain things are the way they are. And then, of course, with that understanding comes the respect, comes the love, comes, the acceptance of, certain situations, certain life, certain emotions, and certain realities. And it is so cool and unique because, again, Wanda makes these like unique and genuine relationships with people who innately, when they were getting to know Melanie, like, most of these people that Wanda makes friends with, never in their lifetime ever like would have thought they would be friends with Melanie. And that's where it like kind of gets confusing and kind of hurtful for Wanda, and like how she kind of vocalizes that too, is that, yes, I'm in Melanie's body, but I'm a completely different, being, from Melanie. And that's what kind of like the other people kind of get too, is that, that they have to start thinking about Wanda as Wanda and Melanie as Melanie, which is so cool because I feel like at the beginning of the book, you as the reader see Melanie and Wanda kind of like one, like you kind of like think about them as like one being in like one body, or like, like one being, maybe one body, or like two just different beings, like two different, things. But then as the story progresses, again, they're just like completely different people. Like, they have completely different personalities, and they're unfortunately just stuck in one body. And while Wanda wants to be her true self and express her true feelings for, the new friends that she makes, for Jamie, for Ian, for Jared, she can't do that because Melanie, Melanie obviously is still in there, and it's her body. So it's going to react the way Melanie wants to because it is Melanie's body. And while Wanda can, has the helm, she's the one driving it, Melanie is still the one doing all the work in terms of like how the body reacts to it. And it's because it's like, this is what the body, what Melanie's body wants. It's not my body. And that's why, like, at the end of the book, when Wanda makes the decision to leave, it's so heart-wrenching, but you understand because it's not her body. The genuine emotions that Wanda develops in herself and towards Ian and like everybody else, she realizes she can't give them what she wants to give them because her body will physically and emotionally not let her. And it is so heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, it's beautiful, it's all of the above. So yes, we have come to the end of the video where we rate our beautiful book here, The Host. Guys, I'm going to be giving this 5 out of 5 coffee cups. I love this book. I love this story. It's one of those where, like, very not different from Twilight, but, well, in terms of, the fantasy, like, no vampires whatsoever. Definitely aliens. But it's a very good read. There's only one, so you don't have to worry about buying 6 of them. But I absolutely recommend reading this book. You could buy it digitally. You could buy it on your local bookstore, wherever you choose to read, however you choose to read. But I absolutely recommend reading this book. And if you have read the book, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. I would love to get to know your guys' opinions on this book and any of the other books that I reviewed. I would love to, get to know my viewers, my friends more. So yes, definitely leave a comment down below of what you thought about the book. And yeah, let's have a cup of joe and discuss it. So yeah, but anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me again today. The beginning of March, the beginning of our scientific romance series. The next book we're going to be reviewing, definitely there will be a fun little post that I'm going to start doing and stuff to help promote more. So be on the lookout for that. But other than that, guys, I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful day. I love you all, and see you next time.